So what we have to do as a party is concentrate on the pragmatics. How do we develop the private-public partnerships that bring business to California and keep business in California? How do we become a business-friendly state? Because we cannot continue with a statewide unemployment average of 12.5%. And what I want to offer is anything I can do, and I know Loretta and Joe Baca and Laura will all be the same, to find a way that we can create the momentum to make this state a good one for the receipt of jobs. One of the things I am trying to do with the Silicon Valley community is see that some of the monies, which are well over $1.5 trillion, which are sequestered overseas, is brought back into this country so that those companies will use that money for new plant and the hiring of employees. The tax rate, bringing it back, is 35%. They want 5.25%. Somewhere in between, we hope to find a formula where these funds can be repatriated and put to work at building the economy in this great state. It is so important to do so. This was a hard election nationally, the hardest I've seen in a long time. We lost the House by 60 votes. We lost 6 seats in the Senate. We nearly lost the majority leader of the Senate, but we didn't. And so now we watch to see what the Republicans would do. I must tell you, I was startled to hear the minority leader, Mitch McConnell, in a nationwide address say our #1 legislative priority is the defeat of Barack Obama in the next election. That's not a legislative priority. That's not what we do in the Senate. And if this is truly going to be the case, the formula for doing that is more of what has happened over the last 2 years, which is to obstruct, prevent the president from getting his cabinet in place, his senior appointments in place. There are still many that have not been confirmed, getting his judges confirmed. There are many that have been put on hold that are not confirmed, and filibuster. And the way this is done in the Senate, you can stand on your own feet like Strom Thurmond did, have the microphone, there is no unanimous consent agreement, and as long as your bladder holds out, you hold the floor. And Strom did it for 24.5 hours without stopping. But the more common way is a cloture vote. And that simply either prevents a bill from coming to the floor for debate or ending a debate. And it takes 60 votes. Well, we had 59 votes. And it was difficult. There were over 70 cloture motions. Each one takes 3 days to run when nothing else can come up on the floor of the Senate. So if this continues, I hope the American people will rise up as a vote, as one voice, and say we have had enough. You know, I think we're sent there to talk with our Republican colleagues, to try to work out solutions to real problems, to be pragmatic, to compromise where we must, but see that progress is made to solve the big problems that we face as a country. And we have many of those. But to stonewall, to stop everything, no matter how good it is, because you do not want a president to have a victory, I believe is something that no Democrat would do to a Republican president. We did not do it to George Bush. I chair the Senate Intelligence Committee. I know what's out there. I read the intelligence. It's interesting in this campaign. I heard no questions on Afghanistan or Iraq or about the wrap-up in Iraq and the war we are fighting in Afghanistan. And it's a very, very serious situation. A lot is at stake. In December, there's a review. The president has said we would begin to downsize our troops in July of next year. But you didn't hear discussion about this. If anyone in this room heard one constructive suggestion of how to write a bill to develop an industrial policy for this country, to write a bill as to how we can build a true green economy, to write a bill as to how we can solve the problems of banks not lending as they should be. None of that was discussed. We heard sort of freedom and liberty. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Henry did that a long, long time ago. What we need are people that are good legislative craftsmen, that understand how to work across the aisle, that can put together constructive, positive solutions to the real problems this country faces. Infrastructure. Look at China. My husband and I have been going to China for 30 years. I started the first friendship city relationship way back in 1979 with San Francisco and Shanghai. When I first went to Shanghai, there was the Bund on the water and then not a single high-rise, no public transportation. You'd go inside a door and the floor was dirt. It's all changed. It's all changed. Brand new infrastructure. High-speed rail going out to the airport. A beautiful bullet train now leaving Shanghai for Hangzhou. And I looked at it and I was so jealous because we need a rail spine down the center of California to move people, to develop new towns, to place business. And how do we do this? We have debt that's huge. We have deficit that's huge. I've heard people say, we've got to reduce the size of government. And let me tell you something about that. What we have spent in the year 2010, 55% of all expenditures have gone for entitlement programs. That's Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, veterans benefits. 6% for interest on the debt. Now, what does that mean? That means that 61% of what the federal government spends in a year essentially cannot be controlled. Then it's about 20% for what's called discretionary defense. That's everything but running a war. It's the increases in salaries, it's the bases, it's the Pentagon, it's all the equipment of a military. That's about 20%. Everything else, the Department of Justice, the 22 agencies and 250,000 employees in Homeland Security, the Department of Agriculture, Commerce, Interior, now everything else is just 18% of what the government will spend this year. At the end of the year, an executive commission will come back with some recommendations of what the Congress might be willing to do with respect to these entitlement programs to enable them to better meet their costs. This will be key, really, to whether we're able to do what needs to be done. I talked to Blanche Lincoln, who lost her race in Arkansas, and she really didn't deserve to lose. Blanche was a very good senator. She was chairman of the Agriculture Committee, and as such, she played a major role in financial reform in a very technical but very crucial way. And I said, Blanche, what was it? If there was one thing, what was it? She said it was my vote on health care. It is so misunderstood, ladies and gentlemen. Every one of us has an obligation to learn what it is and what it isn't, and tell our friends and tell our neighbors. Right now, we're going through a very hard time because the United States of America is the only large for-profit medical insurance industry in the world. Everywhere there's health care reform, it isn't with a huge for-profit medical insurance. And much of the industry right now are raising rates and saying that it's because of health care reform. And it isn't. There is nothing in that bill that should cause a raise of rates at this time. So there are so many things that are misleading to people as to why they feel the way they feel. I hope we're proud of the victories here in this state. I hope we're proud of people like Loretta and Laura and Miguel and Joe Baca and Lou Correa, people who are willing to soldier on despite how hard this is. And I hope even more fundamentally that we can really forge that team and show that by problem solving and sitting down with people and doing what the American people expect us to do, which is to solve problems, that we can turn this around. I happen to believe that what people do is they say a pox on both their houses. They don't separate out that it's just Republicans that are filibustering and using cloture and stopping things and obstructing wherever they can. It washes over on us as well. And so I think that we really need to mount our own pragmatism, reach out and try. And if we fail, try again. And if we fail again, try again. Work with the other side, solve some of these problems. And I think the cycle will go round and people will be once again proud of the Congress of the United States of America. So I want to thank you for all you've done. When I came to this county in 1989, it was a Republican county through and through. And thanks to the work of people in this room, not the least of which is Wylie Aitken and Dan Jacobson and Frank Barbaro and a lot of other people, this is turning around.